Hey, good morning, everybody. Mark Suttle with HurricaneTrack.com here, and I am in Lake City, Florida, getting ready to head out in a couple of hours. Going to head west on I-10 towards Gulfport, where we're going to meet up with Greg Nordstrom, our colleague from Mississippi State University, and Brent, who is texting me now, asking me a question. Brent flew up from the Virgin Islands. He is going to be here in Lake City in about an hour. My good friend and colleague Mike Farrow helped me from Wilmington, North Carolina, so we've got really good help. And I got some good sleep last night and just got up about 45 minutes ago, and it's now time to tackle what's going on here with Laura and Marco. And by the way, this graphic that's the title card here and will eventually be the thumbnail. Sorry, got to get my brain in gear. I have water. I don't have coffee. I've got water. Maybe I should start drinking coffee. This is produced by one of our crowdfunding partners on Patreon. Goes by the name Spooky on Twitter, Fires of Truth. She's Kari from the UK. And I just wanted to point this out. This is what people do to help out. It's amazing. It's not just the crowd funds, but this saves me time. I don't have to put these together. It looks good. It's catchy. So there you go. So thank you, Kari. Spooky. Appreciate the help there with this graphic. So let's get started with the update here. And I'm going to approach things a little bit differently today, as you'll see. So let's take a look at what we know right now, and that is we have Marco over here. Small tropical storm in terms of its aerial extent. It's not very large. And then we have Laura over here, a much larger envelope that it's got to work with, but it's disheveled somewhat, and we'll look at these closer in a moment on the visible satellite imagery. This, though, Marco definitely getting stronger. It's got this little bit of a jet streak to the north, and that's helping to pull the air out. And that's what you need to understand. One way or another, tropical storms and hurricanes need the air to go away from them in the upper levels, not come across the top of them and separate the thunderstorms. So if your storm is moving this way and your upper level winds are moving this way, you get that shearing action. And if it's just right, those upper level winds getting that air out of there, even if it's from one channel, as long as it's not going across the storm, it evacuates that air. So in other words, this jet streak probably comes in something like this, and Marco is down here, so that the air is getting pulled away from the center, not across the storm. So if it was coming straight out of the south, it would pull those thunderstorms with that motion, if that makes sense, and it would be sheared. There's probably some shear, but this 100-knot jet streak that's sitting down here is helping to pull that air away from Marco. That's drawing the air in at the surface. It's going up. That's that convection that you see, and then it's getting pulled off at least in one direction right now, helping it to intensify temporarily at least. We'll have to just see how long that lasts. With Laura over here, pretty good environment overall. It's not ideal just yet, but I think that is going to change, and we will examine that as we move through the discussion here. So a close-up of Marco, very small overall package of energy, right? A majority of the circulation there is in the Yucatan Channel here. You can see a few lightning flashes. That's the yellow speckles that we notice. So there's a few lightning flashes in there as Marco tries to really ramp up that small vortex or small area of vorticity that's tucked in here somewhere. It's hard to pick it out on the visible satellite imagery. That's why we have tools like this here on Twitter. Alex posting a tweet here from Levi Cowan. You know him, the genius behind Tropical Tidbits. Alex saying that Hurricane Hunter plane finds Marco's pressure is dropping on the most recent pass They reported a small eye wall forming, and you can see this on the radar from Cuba. So if you look at the tweet from Levi closer, there you go. Radar really helps, and we see that little bit of an eye wall there, right there. So a small overall system that's trying to ramp up, and they can do that very, very quickly, especially over the very high ocean heat content of this area of the Caribbean. And so western Cuba over here may be having some tropical storm conditions, especially the extreme western tip as Marco moves through. How long will this intensification go? We will address that in just a moment. All right. So now let's take a look at Laura. Pretty good convective burst, especially earlier this morning. Overall, though, kind of disheveled. There is some outflow where the wind, again, is able to kind of go up and fan out in the upper levels. But there's still some shear. The winds are maybe just a little bit too strong from the west and west-southwest, and that's going to change eventually. I'm pretty confident of it. And this is an interesting satellite. This is infrared satellite put together by this guy right here, Levi Cowan. You know him. He's the one that codes this. So big shout out to Levi always for his work. But what we see, these brighter colors in here represent deeper thunderstorms in the atmosphere. And there's a solid one right there going over eastern Puerto Rico. Luckily, the Virgin Islands here escaping the brunt of this big mass of heavy rain. This is what we call, in many regards, a cistern filling event. Yeah, the people down there need their fresh water, and they get it from these big cisterns or tanks that the rain falls and it gets collected in these big cisterns that hold that water. But for Puerto Rico, that convective little burst right there, that could be problematic because you have some mountains in here. So the flood risk is definitely there. So we see the satellite animation. Now let's look at it from the radar perspective. And there's some very interesting things to take note of. I believe this is the dying low-level circulation of Laura. All right, I think this is the low center right here. Let me change the color of the rainbow. So right there, there's the low-level center, I believe, the low-level circulation. This down here, you see this rotating much more prevalently, and you've got some banding going on in here. This is more of your mid-level center, and I think this is going to die out. I need a way to instantly put a graphic of like a skull and crossbones. We'll put a little face in there. This is terrible. Da-da-da, da-da-da. There you go. I think this is going to die out, and this is going to take over eventually. And we see that, what we call center reformation or reformation, often with tropical systems that are still in their infancies. And Laura, it has a long way to go, and I think it's going to have quite a storied ending when it's all said and done, and we're just getting started with this. But that being said, still some heavier rain trying to move through parts of the Virgin Islands for the rest of the day, as this fairly quickly moves on off to the west-northwest with time. Again, I think this is going to die away and move on off much quicker this way, and this will take over. And now things become very interesting and complex for the future. So instead of showing you models and what this model says, what that model says, and trying to figure it all out using the Euro, using the GFS, let's approach it from a different standpoint. All right, let's look at the pattern, and I'm going to show you that. And let's look at impact. What can we expect as far as impact? And to do that, we're going to go to our very own tracking map. And I'm going to show you how you can access this in just a moment. It's an exclusive, really, really cool tracking tool that one of our crowdfunding partners from the UK, living it up in the UK today. We got Spooky. She's from the UK, Kari, and Will Woodgate put together this map. He's also in the UK. And we'll talk about this, how you can access this more in a moment. So this is what we have with our two systems here. And where's the cone of uncertainty? There we go. So let's think about the impact. So first of all, we have Marco down here, and it's supposedly going to bend back towards Texas. Okay, so you would assume, let's just widen it out, this cone here. Somebody in this area is going to get probably tropical storm conditions. Heavy rain, squalls, power outages, coastal storm surge, especially in that concave portion of the Northwest Gulf. Now, what we know from looking at the overall models, instead of looking at this one and comparing it to that one, and maybe, the general consensus of the models, and that's what I want to talk about, for Marco, as it comes up here, is that it could probably become a hurricane, at some point in here, sure. But once it approaches the coast, it looks like upper level winds are going to tear it apart and weaken it substantially as it approaches the coast. So that's good news, obviously. And we can click on these forecast points, and it tells you, it's going to be about 60 miles per hour there, and then weakens obviously over land. And the Hurricane Center doesn't bring it to hurricane intensity yet. And that might change, especially considering that it's starting to strengthen in front of our eyes right now. But I want you to just think about impacts up here, not only at the coast, but inland as well, as this treks inland. And the general idea of the models is that this will move in that direction. That's why we have the forecast and the cone of uncertainty, which is representative only of where the center is a majority of the time. The cone of uncertainty is only about the center. It has nothing to do with impact. Marco is fairly small, so the area of impact should be fairly small. And the general pattern does not allow, so far, for a major system to come in here with strong wind, big storm surge, very heavy rain over a large area. The heavy rain threat will certainly be there, and we know areas like Houston, Harris County, etc. Heavy rain in Houston usually equal bad problems. So we'll watch this, but it's a few days away, and it doesn't look like a major threat in terms of a big wind maker. All right, so that's the bottom line on Marco. Now, what about Laura? Well, this is a little bit different story. Right now, the pattern is okay, but it's got to deal with some land down here. And the models generally show that. Some of the models are a little bit north of the islands, some are a little bit south of the islands. The key here for Laura is how much land interaction does it actually endure. If it goes right over the spine of these islands here, especially Hispaniola, it's going to be very disruptive. But there's a ceiling. I talked about this last night. Laura is not coming in as a 150 mile per hour hurricane slamming into Hispaniola, which would just rip the guts out of it. It would take that core that a 150 mile an hour hurricane would have and tear it all to pieces. It would disrupt it. And then Laura would have to spend a lot of time trying to get back to that ceiling that it reached of 150 miles per hour. It's not there yet. What is the ceiling? Well, right now the conditions would probably favor, in this area, the atmosphere and the ocean without land in the way, probably a Category 1 hurricane, maybe stronger. So it's going to try to reach that ceiling despite the land, meaning that it'll hold together its soul, if you will. And that sounds kind of weird, but you know what I mean? The heart of it is a better way to put it. It'll stay intact. The low-level center may get disrupted, but that mid-level circulation higher up in the atmosphere will sail right over Hispaniola, and maybe we start to see centers try to reform this side, or a center reforms down here. Some weird things are going to happen, and there's no way to figure out exactly what's going to happen. So paying attention to this run of the GFS, that run of the HWRF, or whatever, is not helpful. the overall situation. We know that there's land in the way. That's step one. The pattern's generally favorable for intensification. That is step two, or the other key, the second key to this. And then what happens after land interaction? That would be sort of step or phase three. And finally, phase four, if you will, would be landfall eventually somewhere along the Gulf Coast. And I think this is going to change a lot. Not drastically, like a big change from run to run or Hurricane Center update to Hurricane Center update, but we're going to see that track bend more towards the west. And I feel like this is going to be a Texas, maybe from south of Galveston to maybe over here towards Cameron, Louisiana type landfall. Southwest Louisiana, upper Texas coast. That's what I think, based on the pattern. Again, I could show you all these models and it just wastes time. The other part of this that we need to understand is intensification. I believe, looking at the pattern, and what does this show, by the way? This is the Madden Julian oscillation. This tells us about, remember when I told you and pointed out how the wind from Marco was going in one single direction, generally that jet streak. The Madden Julian oscillation is more or less a period of favorability where the winds in the atmosphere are just overall very light, like a big umbrella, allowing for air to come up and spread out, what we call divergence aloft. Right now, the Madden Julian oscillation is in phase 1, or 8, going into 1. And then it is going to be amplifying over into phase 2. Phases 1, 2, and 3, especially 2 and 3, really favor the area that Laura will be moving into in this region over here. And that is several days away. So Laura's here, phase 1, 8 to 1, and then eventually 2 and 3. You understand? As it moves along, coincidentally with that, as Laura goes along in its life cycle, these phases of the MJO gradually favor the Atlantic Basin more and more. So conditions are just going to become better as Laura moves along. This is almost a certainty. This is the ECMWF. This is the ensemble guidance through here. This is a very large-scale feature. This is very easy to predict overall once it's in motion like this. A very big signal. I'm serious. So the pattern is going to favor strengthening post-Cuba. You understand what that means there, post-Cuba. Once this gets past Cuba, all of this area to landfall favors strengthening, period. The Gulf is warm, the atmosphere is going to be ready, and that is what the HWRF hurricane model, the HMON hurricane model are seeing. And the global models are starting to pick up on it. Global models don't necessarily see tropical cyclones in the same resolution as the hurricane models, the HWRF, the HMON, and others, okay? So that the global models are now picking up on Laura's intensification more and more is a signal to me that those models are seeing the pattern, that the hurricane models show us the way. And I know a couple people trying to give me some heat on Twitter the other day about posting those hurricane models that indicated a very strong Laura right here in the vicinity of Florida. And the idea is that those models are showing you the potential. Greg Nordstrom and I talked about that last night. You don't have to take them face value. Oh, this is what's going to happen. No. You look for consistency, and those two models have run after run after run, blown Laura up, if it avoids land, into a powerful hurricane. They haven't been waffling. Well, one run the HWRF was total whatever. The next run, the HWRF was Cat 4 or 5. No, it's been very consistent. So they're showing us the way. That once the atmosphere is primed over here, and it will be, I'm very confident of it, Laura will strengthen significantly, and I believe we can have a very powerful hurricane heading for the northwest Gulf of Mexico after we deal with Marco. All right, so as far as impacts, just real quick, zoom in on this. If you look at just the line and the dots here, maybe some impacts for the Keys, certainly. Definitely going to be impacts all across Cuba and Hispaniola, that goes without saying. Heavy rain, the flooding threat. But you folks in the Keys, depending on if we get a center reformation over here and Laura tracks north, the impacts will be greater. We'll keep an eye on it. We have a couple of days, which is good, and so we'll see. But beyond the Keys, I am most concerned for generally this area over here that could have a powerful hurricane heading in their direction, which will bring surge, big-time wind, inland flooding, the whole bit. We know, but we're not there yet. We can talk about that more as we go along. All right, so how do you access this map? It's through our crowdfunding. And again, Spooky, Kari, she's a crowdfunder, one of our patrons. We have almost 400 others, plus our HurricaneTrack Insider subscribers, supporters. It's all about crowdfunding, people helping out in a collective sense. I hate to call it a membership. I know that that's what Patreon calls it. I look at it more as a cooperative. I've mentioned that before. And the map and all of our cameras start at this level right here. And if you ever wanted to go with us on a mission, that's what we've set up. And I know you go, my goodness, that's a lot of money a month that you're asking for. If you want to go with us on a mission, we actually have a bucket level, opportunity. That's how that's funded. We have one person that's done that, and that's Brent. And that's why he's with us. He's able to help out not only financially, but he's here helping out and with his time and his talent. And man, that guy is talented too. He puts together a lot of our graphics after everything is done, showing you what happened, these infographics of our data. But we have other levels, 25, 100. It just depends. Whatever makes your budget happy, we have it, and that's how you access the map and other amazing tools that we have. And speaking of the map, you get the tracking, of course. You can change the extent to street level. It can look different like this. You can pop up our cameras. That's pretty cool. We've got a couple of them down here that are active right now in the Virgin Islands. I'll just show you here St. Thomas, or St. John, I'm sorry. And this is Brent. He's one of our crowdfunders, one of our patrons. The other camera over here in St. Thomas, and I know that the geolocation's off just a little bit. We're working on it. It's version 1, so to speak. But the bottom line, this is what you access through the map. It's quite impressive. And one of our patrons, Will Woodgate, in the UK, put this together for us. So that's pretty neat. As well as the other live cameras. Sorry, trying to figure out how to get out of all this and say goodbye. All of our cameras that we set up, that's how we do it. It is crowd-funded science, and what a remarkable thing. The people collectively, for $10 a month, come on. If everybody did that, we would be able to literally hire, these people are volunteering. If I could hire Kari, if I could hire Will, even on a stipend basis where they get a certain amount each year to help out, these people are volunteering. Imagine if we could broaden out and get that Patreon, I'm serious, upwards of $10,000 a month. That's not my money, so to speak. I want to be able to expand and start pulling in talent, that we create something that will change internet weather. We've already done it, I think, but I'm talking big time. I'm getting ahead of myself, but you know what? That's how dreams come true. You plan, you envision, you rally the troops, and you guys are those troops. So don't think of it as a subscription or a paywall, as it is an opportunity to get involved with something remarkable that's educational, science-backed, science-based, the data, the visual stuff. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. So that's how we do it. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. It's hurricane coverage, other weather coverage, far beyond television. Because it is. You just can't do this on TV. All right, so my plan, again, Brent's going to be here in a little bit. Mike and Brent and myself will head over towards Gulfport, Mississippi in all likelihood, and we will go from there. We will be streaming live from my truck today. That is available all the time at no cost at all. We'll put that on YouTube. So if you're following on YouTube, that's how you see that. I'll post that on Twitter. And of course, our patrons, I'll be posting stuff for you guys as well, exclusively in the Patreon app and the web interface for Patreon. And we'll see what happens. All right, a lot more to go with all this over the next few days. Once I get to Gulfport, I will produce another video discussion later this evening. All right. As always, thank you for tuning in. That's what matters to me the most. I appreciate that I'm able to do this as a career, sure. But without you, the people on the other side of the screen, there would be no need for me. I am Mark Sudduth in Lake City, Florida. Thanks for watching. I'll be talking to you later on through the live stream and then another video update this evening.